How to master bluffing frequency in high-stakes poker. Are you curious about how to master bluffing frequency in high-stakes poker? This skill can make or break your game. Let's break down the essential strategies and tactics you need to know. First, understand that bluffing frequency is all about balance. You want to bluff enough to keep your opponents guessing, but not so much that they can easily catch on. The key is to make your opponents indifferent to calling your bets. Start with pot odds. When you place a bet, the percentage of the time you should bluff should match the pot odds you give your opponent. For example, if you bet $100 into a pot of $100, your opponent faces a 2-to-1 pot odds. This means you should bluff about 33% of the time to keep your strategy balanced. Next, consider the different streets in poker. Early in the hand, like pre-flop or on the flop, your bluffs can have more equity. You can use semi-bluffs with hands that have potential to improve. As you move closer to the river, tighten your bluffing range. On the river, avoid bluffing with hands that have showdown value, as opponents are more likely to call. In high-stakes poker, you may need to bluff more frequently than in lower-stakes games. Your opponents are often more skilled and will fold less often. If you only bet for value, they may fold their weaker hands, limiting your winnings. Incorporating bluffs, especially with drawing hands, helps keep your opponents on their toes. Mathematically, you can calculate the break-even fold percentage needed for a bluff to be profitable. For instance, if you raise $32 into a pot of $26.50, you need your opponent to fold more than 55% of the time for the bluff to work. Knowing these percentages helps you decide when to bluff based on your opponent's tendencies. Practical tips for mastering bluffing frequency include always considering your opponent's calling tendencies. Against tight players, bluff more often since they tend to fold. Against loose players, focus on value betting instead. Balance your range by mixing bluffs with value bets in similar situations. This prevents you from becoming predictable. Have a clear plan for future streets when you bluff. Know how you will react if your opponent calls or raises. Using blockers can also help. Blockers are cards that reduce the chances your opponent has a strong hand. Adjust your bluffing frequency based on game flow, opponent skill, and table dynamics. Mastering bluffing frequency in high-stakes poker requires a mix of pot odds, strategic balance, and understanding your opponents. By keeping your opponents uncertain and adjusting your strategy, you can maximize your profits and avoid being easily exploited.